So, hello everybody and welcome. Yes, welcome back here at BSN Network. Who back here, BSN Network. This is the BSN Network podcast here today. It is Tuesday, November 16th. Hope everybody's having a day so far and a good rest of their day yesterday. It is, in fact, Tuesday, November 16th here today, coming off of another big night in sports last night. The San Francisco 49ers get a much-needed, and I mean it, much-needed win versus the Los Angeles Rams, and kind of a surprising one. I don't think many of us saw that coming, especially after the Rams go out and sign Odell Beckham, sign Odell Beckham, go out and trade for Von Miller. I don't think many of us saw that coming, but yes, the Niners got the win. They pulled off the upset, and, it's a big win for the Niners. And I said it yesterday, the chance that the Niners have to make the playoffs is obviously, kind of slim. But now with just one win, it completely changes the trajectory of their season. And, we always talk about how one win can really change things. And it's the truth. I mean, the Niners right now, one win could really change their season. And last night could have been that win as they took they defeated the Rams 31-10. And you look at the Niners' upcoming schedule and you say, okay, we got the Jaguars coming up. You got to be ready for that game. You get the win there, 5-5. Then you have the Seahawks, or the Vikings rather. That's a winnable game. And then you have the Seahawks, which the way they played with Russell Wilson against the Packers, you got to say that's a winnable game. And now all of a sudden, you look at the rest of their schedule and you're like, the Niners are in a position to maybe go on a little bit of a run here and maybe run the table and maybe make things interesting and maybe squeak into the final, 7 seed or maybe 6 seed or something like that playoff spot. And it's a big win last night for the Niners. So that was a big win last night for the Niners. We'll get to that. We'll recap all that game. A lot of basketball as well on last night. Ton of basketball, ton of hockey. Tonight we got the Rangers, and tonight we got the Nets. We got Kentucky as well. Haven't talked about them much. I'll touch upon them today. So we got Kentucky versus Mount St. Mary's. We got Nets versus Warriors, like I mentioned yesterday. I mean, you look at him, you look at beginning of the season matchups, right? You look at them and you go ahead and say, it's the beginning of the season. Teams are still finding their identity. Teams are still, building and getting better. But you look at the beginning of the season, you look at matchups, and this is one of these matchups where this could be a possible finals preview. Now, there's so many different finals previews you could think of, especially when you're only, 14, 15 games into the season. There's so many things you could think of. You could say, Warriors Bucks, Warriors Hawks, Warriors Sixers, Warriors Nets, Warriors this, or Lakers, or the Jazz, or the Suns, or any of those teams, right? You could say any of those teams could be in there. The Jazz, the Suns, you could think of a million different teams to be in there, and you could say, this team's going to be in, this team, the Clippers, the Nuggets, all those different teams. So there's always early season where maybe you could say it's a finals preview, but this one especially because it is the Nets, it is the Warriors. Finals preview or not, you got Stephen Curry versus KD, you got KD versus Draymond, you got the former KD playing his former team. Last year he played the Warriors twice, once at home, once on the road. On the road, obviously, none of them had fans. The first game, it was the first game of the season. Then he played, back in Golden State, no fans. So now with the fans involved, now with kind of the stakes being maybe a little bit higher, second year of KD and Harden and all that stuff. Now you got to really think, okay, tonight's game's pretty big, especially early in the season. So we'll see how all that goes. With the Nets, Rangers try to continue their winning ways. They've had a great start this season, 9-3-3 on the season. They play the Montreal Canadiens tonight. Look to have another big win. They got the overtime win against the Devils, and they look to get another win tonight against the Canadiens. Alrighty, so with all that being said, let's get to the topics for today's podcast. A lot to get to. Got some football, got some baseball. The New York Mets finally find their general manager. We'll get to that in the second topic, but let's get to the topics for today. Since it's a Tuesday and we had Monday Night Football last night, I'll recap the Monday night game. Rams-Niners. Niners just crushed the Rams. I mean, it was bad. I mean, it was really bad. And you look at the game and you go into the game and you're thinking, okay, Rams are probably going to win this. And I think many of us expected, myself included, we expected it to be the opposite. I said Rams were going to win 31-14. I was obviously wrong about that. Sure enough, the Rams won, or the Rams lost, and it was almost by 31-14. They lost 31-10. So, really tough loss for the Rams, especially the way they've been, the way their season has gone, and you lose to the Titans, now you lose to the Niners, you dropped a few here, you got to get back on track. They head into a bye week, time to kind of reset. I think this bye week comes at the right time for the Rams. Not that it's a panic mode by any means, but you get a new player in Beckham, right? You got a new player in Von Miller. Now it's like finally time for them just to kind of debunk from everything that's gone on. Same thing with this Rams team, right? There's been so much national attention on the Rams the past couple weeks with the trade of Von Miller, signing OBJ. Everything's been going on, right? And it's kind of now you go into your bye week, and now it's kind of a time to kind of just reset. Reset mentally, reset physically. And it's almost like this bye week couldn't have come at a better time. Von Miller, Beckham will get more used to the system, kind of get more used to being with the Rams and being with a new team, build more chemistry. That's kind of what it is. So this bye week does come at a right time. But I'm going to recap the game because the Rams they played terrible. They played awful. And the Niners took advantage of their mistakes and they got the job done. So we'll get to that. The Mets GM search is finally over. From what we all thought was going to last forever is now finally over. As the New York Mets yesterday announced that or not yet announced, but it's expected that the New York Mets will hire Billy Eppler as their next GM. Obviously, definitely kind of one I don't think many people saw coming. I don't think many people know really who Billy Eppler is. He's experienced. He's been around. He's been in New York before. He's been with the Yankees. He was the assistant GM for 2012-2014. That's the only reason I know him. So he's with the Yankees already. He knows New York. He's been the GM for the Angels for a little bit now. So Mets go out and hire an experienced general manager and a guy who's been in the big market and has been with an organization like the New York Yankees that gets a lot of national recognition. So we'll see what he can do. And it's kind of one of these moves that not many people know much about him. I only know him really from the Yankees, and even then, I don't really know much about kind of how he runs his teams, if he takes more of an aggressive approach, if he takes more of a rebuild approach. He took more of a rebuild approach with the Angels, but that's kind of how he inherited that roster. He's inheriting a Mets roster where you're a move or two away from making this team a really, really serious contender in the NL East. So we'll see what he does. It's definitely not a Theo Epstein's hiring, but it's a hiring nonetheless, and the New York Mets have a GM. And I'll get to that. I'll talk about it. The long wait is over. The Mets finally have a GM. And now if you're a Met fan, you can finally start talking about what you want to do in the offseason in terms of signings, trades. Finally, you get to talk about who you're going to hire now as your GM because the Mets finally get their GM. So we'll get to that. Then we'll get to the New York sports update as well. Like I said, big night tonight in New York sports. Knicks obviously were able to get the win last night. We'll see if the Nets can do the same tonight against the Warriors. Big game early in the season, right? It doesn't mean everything. If one of these teams loses tonight, that doesn't mean that they're not going to do anything the rest of the year. But it's a big game. It's early in the season. It's an opportunity to see really where both teams match up. And we'll see what happens. 7:30 Eastern tonight on TNT. So a nationally televised game for those who usually don't get Yes Network or whatever the Warriors local network is. So Rangers, Nets tonight, and Kentucky as well. So I'll be watching that. I'll probably have Kentucky on the phone and Nets on the TV. So I'll be multitasking there. A lot of sports, and probably Kentucky and Rangers probably both on the phone. I'll switch back and forth, whatever. So a lot of good stuff. A lot of good stuff on there. I might have both on the phone. I don't know. I might just, Nets on TV and figure something out for whatever. But that's usually what I do. I usually have one team on the TV, one team on the phone. And it doesn't go off of what I want to watch more. It usually goes off of whatever I can get. So I'm able to get Kentucky on the phone. I'm not able to get Nets on my phone. So that's always usually what happens. It's whatever I can get. So we'll see. But big night today ahead of us. Big podcast ahead of us. With all that being said, this is the BSN podcast, and let's get right into it. Alrighty, so Week 10 of the NFL season wrapped up yesterday as the San Francisco 49ers defeated the Los Angeles Rams 31-10. So the Niners moved to 4-5 on the season, and the Rams fall to 7-3 on the season. So my game picks yesterday, not great for the week. Week 10, I went 6-8. So as I mentioned, going into last night's game, I was 6-7. I was hoping the Rams would pull through and move me to 7-7, 500 on the week. That wasn't the case. I moved to 6-7. So week 10, I went 6-8 in my week 10 game picks. Not great, not good at all. So I'm hoping that I'm better with the weeks to come. And week 11, obviously right around the corner, starting on Thursday night. So my overall record going into week 11 is 92-58. So an opportunity this week to surpass 100 wins. So we'll see how all that goes. It's an opportunity to surpass 100 wins this week if I get 8 picks correct. So we'll see how everything plays off. But that's the update on the game picks. And let's get to the game last night. Because last night's game, no other way to put it, was surprising. And the Los Angeles Rams, it seems, couldn't have done it everything that could have went wrong for the Rams went wrong yesterday. I know that I use that saying a lot, and the viewers watching the show might be like, "Oh, you say that all the time. Every time a team loses, everything that could have went wrong." But really, it might sound repetitive, but it is true. Everything that could have went wrong last night for the Rams did. The Rams going out and trading for Von Miller and all the hype around that. Oh, Von Miller and Aaron Donald, just them two, rushing the quarterback and stopping the run. It's going to be great. Well, they had an awful night. Their defense got just pounded and pounded and pounded and pounded by the run game. And I'll really get to the numbers in a little bit. Elijah Mitchell, 91 yards. They ran the ball, 37-42. They ran the ball 44 times. They threw the ball yesterday 19 times. 15 of those were completed. So they did not throw the ball much. And they did not throw the ball much at all. They ran the ball a ton. And the Rams couldn't stop them. And for all the media and the talk and the chatter, with the Rams going out and trading for Von Miller and then most recently signing Beckham, who was released by the Browns, as we all know, last night, they laid an absolute dud of a performance. And last night, to put it in the most simplest terms, the 49ers were the more hungry and the team that needed that win most. And they played like it last night. They played with a lot of passion. They played with a lot of aggressiveness. Kyle Shanahan could have said, hey, I'm kind of worried about Von Miller and Aaron Donald, rushing, getting my run game. And I'm kind of worried about that. Or I'm also worried about them, I'm kind of worried about them getting to the quarterback and busting through this line and all that stuff. And maybe, Kyle Shanahan could have said that and could have went ahead and said, hey, we're not gonna run the ball much. I'm worried about Von Miller and all that. Well, they ran the ball much, and they ran it to the other way, and they did what they needed to do. And the Rams just seemed like they came out with not enough fight, not enough passion, not enough energy to match what the Niners did. And sometimes that's how it is. When you have a team that's fighting for a playoff spot like the Niners, last night, we can all agree. If the Niners won last night, right? We all know since the Niners won last night, they're right back in the conversation of making that final playoff spot in the NFC. If they would have lost last night, most Niner fans today probably would have been looking ahead to the draft and maybe looking ahead to seeing the possibilities of playoffs. But 3-6 is a much harder deficit, obviously, to come over than 4-5. I mean, let's be honest here. Niners more than likely are back at 500 next week. The craziness of their season, starting off 2-0, then losing 4 straight, then winning, then losing, then going into last night's game with a very tough opponent, winning. Niners by the end of next week could be 5-5, and you're in a very good position moving forward. So it was a must-win game for the Niners. It really was. And it was against a very difficult team. They were home, a loud crowd, a lot of people. The energy was on the Niners side yesterday, and it showed. And the Rams, frankly, just did not come out with enough passion, did not come out with enough fight. And I don't know if that's a result of the media and the outside noise that has gone on the past 2-3 weeks with the signing of Von Miller, or with the trading for Von Miller, and with the signing of Beckham. I don't really know if that has everything to do with it, but it sure does seem like those two big acquisitions had something to do with the team not fully being ready. And I'm not blaming it on Beckham or Von Miller. I'm not saying that. But the outside noise, the media, oh, Beckham's here now. Does Stafford have to give him the ball a ton? Oh, just imagine Aaron Donald and Von Miller together on this defensive line. And questions being asked. Is this guy going to play? Is this guy going to play? What's his role going to be? All those things going on. The Rams went out last night and did not play good, and they looked like they weren't even prepared. They were not prepared for what the Niners did, and their offense looked dysfunctional last night. And that might be the worst I've seen Stafford play in a really long time, and that's saying something. Because he's had some bad performances before. Last night, he did not play well at all. He was only averaging 9 yards a throw. He threw 2 interceptions. One of them, not really his fault, went right through Higbee's hands. But the other one, he forced the ball deep to guess who? Odell Beckham. And that's one of the issues we all have to take into account now. Will Stafford continue to try to force the ball to Beckham? He only targeted him 3 times. But we can all agree that second time he targeted him, that was unnecessary. He threw it deep. Beckham was in miscommunication, in double coverage, and it was picked off. That can't happen. And, frankly, the Rams yesterday did not look good at all. And I'm not going to sit here and be in a panic mode, but what I will say is this, and I said it in the intro of this podcast. This bye week for the Rams could not have come at a better time. Because with all the outside noise and everything going on, the outside noise, all the talk, all that, everything going on with all that outside noise, the Rams just did not seem to be able to focus enough on the task at hand, and that was going into San Francisco and defeating the Niners. This bye week couldn't have come at a better time. Because now they get an opportunity to kind of just reset, kind of just really just think about where they're at as a team, kind of decide exactly what Beckham and Von Miller's roles are going to be, because let's be honest here. Von Miller, although he got traded to the team, he did not play last week, and Beckham got signed, this week? What was it, Tuesday, Wednesday? And he was playing in a game on Monday. So it's kind of an opportunity to really reset and figure, okay, what are their roles going to be? How are they going to contribute offensively and defensively? Beckham obviously on the offense and Von Miller on the defense. And then you really can script up the correct game plan for whatever they're going, however they're going to contribute. Because last night, it looked like the Rams just had a bunch of new pieces, and they just said, hey guys, go out there, try to get open, and we'll see if it works. That's what it looked like last night for the Rams offense. And for their defense was bad. It was bad. It looked like they were not prepared for the run. It looked like the defense the entire week worked on defending the pass. It really did. Because their offense and their defense stopping the run was terrible. Deebo Samuel had a touchdown, obviously, rushing. Right? He was averaging 7 yards, 2 yards, 3 yards. It wasn't even that they were averaging a ton of yards per carry. It's the fact that they ran the ball a ton. 27 rushes out of Elijah Mitchell. Then 5 out of Deebo Samuel. 5 of those were huge runs. He averaged 7 yards a carry on those 5 rushes. His longest was 9. So that in itself, 32 carries. Elijah Mitchell had more carries than Jimmy Garoppolo had passes the entire game. So that in itself, 32 carries then. Then Wilson had 10, and Garoppolo had 2 himself. So 44 carries yesterday combined in the run game. And they threw the ball 19 times. But when they threw the ball, they did their job. 15 of 19, 182 yards, 12 yards a throw, 2 touchdowns, no picks, only got sacked once, a rating of 141.7, and Jimmy Garoppolo did what he needed to do. Last night was as perfect as it could get for the Niners. They executed their game plan. They made the Rams look silly offensively and defensively, and they defended their home, and they got a big win. And they did it by running a ton, and wearing down that Rams defense. Wearing down that defense. Now, what was it? Stafford threw the pick early in the game, right? So, first play of the game, he threw it to Beckham. Then he threw, the third play of the game, or fourth play of the game, intercepted. Stafford passed deep left, intercepted by Jimmy Ward, who then had a pick six as well. So he intercepted there. Then this is the Niners. So the Niners, when they took over possession, it was 12 minutes and 57 seconds left on the clock. This was the first quarter. Okay, after they kicked the field goal, 1 minute and 54 seconds. So they had the ball pretty much for the entire first quarter. And then guess what happens? Matthew Stafford throws a pick. And that's a pick six. So pretty much for the entire quarter, the Niners probably had the ball for about, 13 minutes? Or about 12 minutes. And then the Rams had it about for 2 to 3 minutes. For about the whole quarter. That's just rounding. That's not the exact minutes and seconds. But it's about that. The Niners took possession at 12:57. When Robbie Gould kicked the extra point for when they scored the touchdown to the pass made the touchdown throw to George Kittle. When Robbie Gould kicked the extra point, 1:54 was left. When they kicked off to the Rams, 1:54 was left on the clock. They took over at 12:57. 1:54 was left. So what? 11 minutes and 3 seconds was their possession there. That's how long it was. 11 minutes. 11 minutes. They dominated them. And let's look at the plays. Let's read the plays. Rush. Jimmy Garoppolo pass short. Ready? Rushing play. A run. Pass. Run. And then a pass for a touchdown. So you saw how many run plays there were. And you're out there on the field for 11 minutes and 3 seconds, you're going to be worn down. And it showed yesterday. And it's the truth. They wore them down so much in the first quarter. You go to the second quarter and you go to all the other moments. It's like after that point, again, look at the Niners here. Niners get the ball 13 minutes and 16 seconds. Okay, their first plays run at 13 minutes and 10 seconds. This is the second quarter. When they kick the extra point, 5 minutes and 24 seconds are left on the clock. Let's read these plays. Okay, it's a run, pass, run. There was a penalty, then a pass, then a run, pass, then a rushing touchdown. So you look at that. And then look at the Rams. Then the Rams get the ball with about five minutes left. They take it down to about 18 seconds. And then you go into the third quarter. Now let's look at the third quarter here. Let's see here. He's sacked, and they have to punt. So they do punt. So the Rams were able to get a start. And that's another thing too. So to start the second half, the Niners get the football. Right? And right now, the Niners are winning 21-7. So the Niners start the second half. They get the football. They do nothing with it, which isn't good. You get the football. It's a run play, then a run play. Then Garoppolo got sacked on a 3rd down and 8. And then on a 3rd down and 8, Garoppolo got sacked. And it was a 4th down 11. They had a punt. So that's okay. They had a punt then. So it's 21-7. The Rams now score a touchdown, make it a 1-score game. Well, what do the Rams do? The Rams, on the other hand, do the complete opposite. First play, passes short. It's a 2-yard game. Then the next play. Then it's a 3-yard game. 3rd down and 5 now. The next play, incomplete. 4th down and 5, you then got to punt it. You want to know how long that took? 12 minutes, 25 seconds was when they took over possession. They punted at 10 minutes, 59 seconds. It was only about a minute and 6 seconds about was the possession. So your defense comes out of the half with energy, stops them, gets the sack, all that. Rams offense goes out there. They are not out there. They have 3 and out, and boom, right back to the Niners. And Niners now get the ball at 10 minutes, 52 seconds. Oh, they have the ball all the way until 4 minutes and 43 seconds. And then the same thing, the Rams then. 3 and out. Got a punt. So the Rams had a chance. They had a chance coming out of halftime. To make that thing a 21-14 game. And then if they got another stop on the Niners ended up scoring and stuff, but the game could have completely changed. So it was a mix of a lot of things. The defense did not play well, but the offense only scored 10 points. So Rams, it was a mix of a lot of things, but the Rams did not play well yesterday, and it showed, especially when you look at the numbers. This is one of these games that if you watched the game, you knew it was bad. Like when I was watching that game, I knew it was bad. But you look at the stats and you look at the plays, it's even worse on paper. It's one of those things that like the eye test looks bad, you look at the stats and they're also bad. And that's when you know you were really bad. And the Rams were that yesterday. And the Niners get a much-needed victory. So Niners obviously get a much-needed victory. And it's one of those things where, now if you're the Niners, right, you got a very winnable game next week against the Niners. But here's the thing, if you're, get a very winnable game against the Jaguars, rather. Here's the thing if you're the Niners, though. This is not a win that you can dwell on and you can really be all fired up about. Because you got to be ready to play the Jaguars. The last thing you need is to have a hangover game and lose against the Jaguars. It's the last thing you need. You defeat the Rams. That's one of those games, that's one of those games that could be I forget what they call it. I forget here. What do they call those? Lock games or whatever they call them. That's one of those games that you could lose, right? You beat the Rams. Now you have the Jaguars. Then you have a home game against the Seahawks. So you're in the middle of this 3-game stretch that's big. You just beat the Rams. Now you have the Jaguars. It's like that's a very winnable game. But then you have the Seahawks. So it's like that's one of those games that you got to make sure you get the job done because those are the type of games that if you lose, your season could go south real fast. Right now, we're talking about the Niners possibly maybe making a run. You lose that Jaguars game, your run is over. So they got to take care of business next week against the Jaguars. And this says it all right here. Time of possession, 39 and 3 seconds the Niners had the ball. Only 20 minutes and 57 seconds did the Rams have the ball. So they had 19 more minutes. They had the ball then. 19 more minutes. The Niners had the ball. And that can't happen. You want to win football games, you got to find a way to have the ball longer. And I mean, they beat them in pretty much everything. I mean, even rushing yards. They had 104 more rushing yards than the Rams. Turnovers, they got the job done there too. And total plays. The Niners, see, this is funny. The Niners ran 64 plays. The Rams only ran 54. You look at the stats, you would think they ran a lot more, but the time of possession was big. The Niners took their time, especially in the second half. They said, hey, there's no urgency here. We're winning. We're going to take our time, and they did that. And that's why they had the ball for almost 40 minutes. It's pretty crazy. You put in, on pay. You look at it, you might go ahead and say, oh, well, they had the ball for 39 minutes. That's a lot. But really put that in perspective. Football games are 60 minutes, right? You had the ball for 39 of those 60 minutes. You had the ball for more than half the game. That's pretty much almost 3/4 of football where you just have the ball. And it shows because then you give the other team. So pretty much the Rams had the ball for about a quarter, for about 2.5 quarters. They had the ball for about 3 quarters. And the Rams only had the ball for only about 1 quarter. That's 50. Then the Rams you're pretty much giving the Rams 15 minutes to score 31 points. So Rams just got crushed. They got crushed yesterday. They got crushed. And I'm not buying into the verdict that is Stafford feeling too much pressure to throw it to OBJ. Yesterday, maybe a little bit. That throw deep downfield was unnecessary. It was unnecessary, okay? It was double coverage. OBJ was a miscommunication. There was no need to throw that ball that early in that game downfield. There was no need for it. That kind of set the tone for the whole game. You got a receiver in Cooper Kupp. You got Tyler. You got all those guys. Last thing you need is to chuck the ball deep first quarter to OBJ. Last thing you needed to do. But Stafford went 26 of 41, 243 yards, only 9 yards completion. Touchdown, 2 picks, 2 sacks, a rating of 67.4. He did not do good. You look here, they only ran the ball 10 times. So Niners ran the ball 44 times. Rams only ran the ball 10 times. Just goes to show you the difference. Cooper Kupp had another big day, 11 catches, 122 yards. At the end of the day, Beckham didn't do much. Beckham only had 2 catches for 18 yards. So he didn't really do much. And you look at the Niners here, 5 catches for 97 yards and a touchdown with Deebo Samuel. And George Kittle had 5 catches, 5 yards, and a touchdown as well. 5 catches, 50 yards rather, and a touchdown. So, and Garoppolo, 15 and 19, 182 yards, 12.1 was his average per throw. 2 touchdowns, no picks. He did take 1 sack and a rating of 141.7. So pretty much as good as you can get. And that's the other thing too. They ran the ball a ton. When they passed the ball, they didn't make mistakes. You sometimes see that with teams, right? When they run it a lot, then they pass it, they make a mistake, and oh no, their plan's not working. Last night, everything went right for the Niners. They dominated in pretty much every category. Time of possession, plays, all that stuff. Niners get a much-needed win against division opponent Rams. So the Niners, so now this is the standings. So right now in the NFC West now, Cardinals are first at 8-2. Rams are second at 7-3. Then the Niners 4-5 are in third. And then last are the Seahawks, who are 3-6. And in the division, that was the Niners' first division win. So the Cardinals are 3-0 in the division. Rams are 1-2. 49ers are 1-3. And the Seahawks are 1-1. And the Rams now are on a little bit of a 2-game skid. That loss to the Titans, then you lose to the Niners. So they're on a little bit of a 2-game skid. We'll see what happens with the Niners if they can continue this little winning, if they can continue their winning ways. So that's that. And then obviously the rest of the NFC rather, the leaders are the Packers or Cowboys, Packers, Bucks, Cardinals. So right now, this is how it is. So right now, the Niners, now, if you look at it, Niners are the 9 seed. So 7 teams obviously make it. So the Panthers are holding that last playoff spot at 5-5. Vikings are right outside 4-5, and the Niners are right behind them at 4-5. So are the Falcons and really the Eagles. So all 4 of those teams have shots. Vikings and Niners obviously have the best. So we'll see. And if the Saints continue to lose with Simeon at quarterback, they could be another team to watch, maybe fall out as well. So Niners are very much in it after that win. Alrighty, so that's what I got for the 49ers and the Rams recap. That will conclude Week 10 of the NFL season. Yes, I can't believe I'm saying that. It's already Week 10 in the NFL. Going by so quick, like always. This is one thing. You always get so excited for the season. Season hits, and you're in like Week 11 now. We're going into Week 11. You're like, wow. It's flying by. So that concludes Week 10 of the season, and Week 11 is next up here. Alrighty, coming up next here, the New York Mets have finally found their GM. No, it is not Bean, or no, it is not Theo Epstein, but they did finally found their GM. And it took a long time. It felt like they were never going to find one. But the Mets finally hire a GM. Billy Eppler headed to the Mets to be their next GM. We'll get to him, get to the Mets, what this means coming up next. Alright, here we go. So former Yankees, Angels executive Billy Eppler finalizing GM contract, as Billy Eppler will become the next GM of the New York Mets. And it seems like it's taken so long. It really has. It really has. And the Mets obviously have been in this long journey with their GM. Steve Cohen taking over last year. You hire Jared Porter. You think he's the guy. All those, the information about him comes out. He's gone. Then you have, the Zach Scott or whatever that guy's name was. He comes in. You believe he's the guy. You hope, okay, maybe this guy can do something. And then he gets charged with, I believe, the DUI or whatever. He gets fired. And now it's like the third time's the charm, I guess. Now the Mets hire yet another GM. And is he the guy? Well, we will see. So the Mets make the move to hire Billy Eppler, the former Angels GM. So their long-awaited GM search is now over. Billy Eppler, just to give you some background, he's not a huge name, not a household name. He's not a Theo Epstein. He's not one of those guys. But he was the assistant general manager with the Yankees under Cashman in 2012 through 2014, and he's been the GM for the Angels really the past 5-6 years, 2015 to 2020. Most recently last season, or 2015 and 2020. Last season was not with the Angels. but was there for a little while. And now, after kind of taking a year, and after being a little dormant from a big position for a year, he's back with the New York Mets. And I always say this whenever you do a hire. And is this a Theo Epstein? No. Is this a guy that everybody knows so much about? No. To be honest, I didn't really know much about him. The only reason I recognized a little bit the name when he got hired, I recognized the name a little bit just because he was with the Yankees. That's the only reason I recognize him. At first, I didn't really even know who he was. I did recognize the name, but then I Googled him. I saw remember him with the Yankees. So that's the only reason why I know him. I personally don't know much about Billy Eppler. I don't think many Mets fans do either. This is one of these hires that it doesn't mean it's a bad hire if you don't know who it is. Sometimes the small hires are the best ones. Sometimes the ones that not many people know about are the best hires because they come in. It's not like you have major expectations for them. It's not like Theo Epstein, where if he came in, the expectation would be win a World Series in 2 years, because that's always seems what happens with him whenever he joins a team. But, this is obviously a move that the Mets felt they believed is the right move, and they believe is the move that is going to help them, direct them into the right direction. And that is ultimately what they believe this move is. And anytime we talk about, a player or a GM, right? Anytime, right? So, let me start with this. Okay, obviously there's markets out there in sports, right? We all know there's, big markets, the average in the market, the average solid team, and then there's small markets. Small markets, just include off the top of my head to keep it, local New York sports, would be Buffalo Bills. They're a small market team. Sabres, small market team. Another small market MLB team off the top of my head, the Marlins. They're a small market team. So there's a lot of small market teams out there. And then you have the big market teams. Big market teams include Dodgers, Yankees, Red Sox are a pretty big market. Go into other sports, Cowboys, right? Rangers are a big market. You go, Giants are a pretty big market. Jets are, New York sports, big market, big organization. Knicks, big market. There's, Nets, they're a small market team. Even though they're in New York and they're now they've grown a name for themselves, they're not a very rich franchise by any means. They're kind of considered a smaller market team. Just because you're a small market team, that a lot of small market teams like the Braves, they're they're like an average. They're not massively big. They're not too small. They're about in the middle. The Astros have kind of grown themselves. They've gone up there to being a little bit of a bigger market. But big like the main big market teams out there, like out of all American sports, are teams like the Lakers, the Dodgers, the Yankees, the Knicks are up there, right? All those teams. Those are all big Cowboys. Those are all big, rich markets, big, rich franchises. So, whenever you go to a big city or a big market like a New York, like an LA, or something like that, Dallas, right? The Cowboys, rich, great history, all that stuff. There's always that extra added pressure. And it always takes that certain person to deliver and that certain person to have success. And I always talk about that, right? It takes a certain person to succeed in New York. You might succeed in, you might succeed for the Bill. I don't mind being negative, but you might succeed for the Buffalo Bills. You go to the Giants, you get more of a big market, more media. You might be totally different. You might succeed as a GM for the Marlins, but you go to the Yankees, big market, higher expectations, media, you could struggle. And you see that a lot of times with players. Francisco Lindor, he succeeded with the Indians, right? He went to a big market this year. Mets are kind of the little brother team in New York, but still, New York, big market, pressure, media. He struggled. So whenever you go out and sign players, trade for players, sign players, hire coaches, in this case, hire a GM, you need to make sure they have experience and are they good in high pressure and big market situations. And in this case, why I think Mets fans should at least feel somewhat safe and confident about this hire is Billy Eppler has already had experience in the big market. He was with the Yankees from 2012 to 2014 as the assistant general manager. No, he wasn't the GM, but he had experience. So he understands what the media is like. He understands the expectations. And especially for a New York Met team that many thought this year could really make a strong playoff push. And they were a true disappointment this season. For a Met team that people expect them to spend money. For a Met team that going out, obviously Steve Cohen buying the team, getting Francisco Lindor. There was high expectations. There really was. And they really struggled this season. So now they're bringing a GM that does now have that experience of being being within New York, knowing what the market is, knowing the media. So that experience is checked off. So that right then and there, this hire to me is like it's a safe hire. You didn't go out and get somebody big where the expectations got to be the World Series. It's a safe hire. He's already had experience in the big market with the Yankees as the assistant GM from 2012 to 14. And obviously he's already had a lot of GM experience being the GM for the Angels from 2015 to 2020. And the Angels too. The Angels are almost like the Mets. The Dodgers are the big team. The Angels are the little brother team in California. Right? The Dodgers are the big name baseball team. The Angels are the little brother. Same thing with New York. Yankees are the big name. They're the big brother. And Mets are like the little brother team. So he's already been the GM for that little brother team with the Angels. Now he goes to the Mets, kind of the little brother team. Bigger market, definitely more pressure with the Mets than the Angels. Just because, the media and all that stuff. But he's already had experience. So this hire to me, is this a hire that if you're a Met fan today, would you be saying, I love it, this is great, we're winning a World Series this season? No. Sure, you may like it. Sure, you may feel good about it. This hire to me is a low-risk hire. It's a hire that not many people know him. He's not a huge name. He's already had experience, though, in the big market. He's already been a GM. So you check off the two biggest boxes. Does he have experience? Yes. Has he been in the New York market before? Yes. Those two boxes are checked off. Now, what is his plan? And that's the big question. That's really what I think will decide on whether Mets fans either hate him or whether they love him. Because if his plan is to win now and kind of do what Steve Cohen's going to do, and that is go out, spend money, get guys, trade, make moves, be very aggressive, then Mets fans, I think, would love him. But if he's taking that approach of maybe what he took with the Angels, although, like I said, completely different situation, inheriting a completely different roster, if he takes that approach that he took with the Angels, it's more of a developmental approach. Go with the young guys, hire a coach that's going to develop, and once you feel good about where you're at, then you can kind of put all the chips in and really go for the playoffs. Personally, I think he's going to take more of that aggressive approach. I think he's going to take more of what he learned with the Yankees of being more aggressive, going out and spending money, doing more of what Steve Cohen would do. That's only why I think they hired him. Maybe he takes the approach of, we're not going to go out and extend all these guys. We're going to bring in some fresh faces. We're going to bring in guys that I want, guys that I believe will help this team, not only just now, but in the future. And we'll really see how that all goes. So, some of the big questions are, what does he do with Conforto? Right? Can they upgrade this pitching as well? Catcher. Everything always starts off with the coaching. Who's he going to hire as manager? That's the next big step. Is who's he going to bring in as the manager? I know Brad Ausmus is a name. He was hired in the Angels in 2019. And he's a guy that many people say Billy Eppler wanted him. He hired him. He likes him a lot. But the reason he was only there for one season was because the owner wasn't a huge fan of his, which is why he got rid of him after that first season where he went 72-90. So that's why he was such a quick exit. Could Sosa be an option that's possible? They'll probably go through so many different options. Another thing, too. you also got to see your plan. What is his plan? Is his plan to maybe take a little bit of a step back and say, hey, I want to kind of do what I did in the Angels. Build, get youth, develop. Then he develops a developmental manager. If he's kind of Steve Cohen's plan, which is probably what he's going to go with, is win now. I want to spend money. I want to make trades, be aggressive. He's probably going to go out and get a guy with a winning pedigree and a guy that knows how to win and a guy that knows how to take control of a locker room and ultimately win. So we'll see what approach he takes. But automatically, right off the bat, you got to conclude Brad Ausmus as an option for a head coach who also has experience. He was with the Tigers for a little while. Then he only spent the one season with the Angels. So the Mets here, what the Mets might be doing, or what Billy Eppler might be doing here, the Mets start off by bringing in experience. Right? They bring in experience by bringing in Billy Eppler, a guy who's already been a GM and was a GM obviously from 2015 to 2020, so that's a pretty long time. It's not like he was a GM for 1 year and got fired. And if Billy Eppler does bring in maybe Brad Ausmus, that's an experienced manager. So the Mets are bringing in more experience. The last, when the Wilpons and all them were there and Sandy Alderson, bringing in Luis Rojas, first-time coach. All right, your GM, all that stuff was all over the place. Now it looks like the Mets are kind of taking the approach of bringing in more experience and guys that have been around the game for longer and know more and really know what it takes to build a roster that can get to that next level, and that's ultimately, hoisting the World Series trophy at the end of the season. And we'll see what Billy Eppler can do. No, this is not a Theo Epstein hiring where the expectation's got to be 2 years, you're a World Series champion. It will be interesting to see what he does, and it all starts off with the manager. But what's great about this all is the Mets finally have their GM figured out, so they can now start to think about manager, and then next step right after that, winter meetings, signings, free agents, trades, whatever you want to do to improve this roster. Now the Mets can shift their focus. Because the biggest worry for Mets fans, and even me as a baseball fan, I was wondering, what's going on here? Is if the Mets going into winter meetings didn't have a GM. Who would want to go to a team without a coach and without a GM and the future being kind of uncertain there? Now that they have their GM, coach should follow behind very shortly. We'll see how everything plays out with the Mets. And the Mets got their GM too before this whole CBA situation really takes full gear. Because who even knows if there's going to be a baseball season? It's kind of a weird stage for it's kind of a weird stage for baseball. Right? You have it's a very weird stage for baseball. Because you have teams going out and making signings and extensions, right? The Angels, for example, today just signed Noah Syndergaard. Jose Barrios just had a massive extension with the Blue Jays, 7-year, $123 million, I think, or 130, something like that. It was Jose Barrios, $131 million. And then you had, obviously, Syndergaard signing as well with the Angels. So you already have some teams going out and being aggressive. You also have some teams kind of waiting back, players waiting back, kind of waiting to see what all happens with this CBA deal. But all I can say is the Mets finally got this GM search out of the way. All these jokes and all this drama and all this media, all that stuff is out of the way. Mets can now kind of focus on what they're going to do with the manager and what they're going to do with this roster. Because this roster does need improvements in many different areas, and we'll see where they go with that. Alrighty, so Mets rumors, former Yankees Angels executive Billy Eppler finalizing GM contract. Alrighty, Billy Eppler is finalizing a contract to become the next general manager of the New York Mets, according to John Heyman of MLB Network. The news comes after Andy Martino of SNY reported Eppler was expected to fill the vacancy. Ken Rosenthal reported earlier Monday that the Mets had offered Eppler the job, and Joel Sherman of New York Post added the two sides were discussing contract details. Per Martino, contract talks had reached a point where an agreement was viewed as likely. Martino previously reported the Mets had yet to confirm any progress in their GM search. So this was November 15th. Eppler is a strong candidate for Mets GM position, as reported earlier, But reiterated just now, but the Mets are not currently confirming that they have made an offer. Chance no further news until tomorrow, but we'll see how the night progresses. So like I said, it's nothing's official yet. Pen hasn't been put to paper, but the deal is being finalized and it's likely. Eppler served as the Los Angeles Angels GM from 2015 until his firing in September 2020. Prior to that, he worked his way up the New York Yankees organization to become their assistant GM. The Mets have drawn negative headlines as they pursue candidates. While not as successful as its neighbor in the Big Apple, the franchise plays in one of the biggest markets in the world, which generally provides a benefit when attempting to land marquee stars. Owner Steve Cohen also appears to be willing to spend. The Mets gave Francisco Lindor a 10-year, $341 million extension and had the third biggest opening day payroll per Cots baseball contracts. That's what made this comment November 9th from team president Sandy Alderson somewhat puzzling. I think it's mostly about New York and not about you, Steve or the organization or what have you. It's a big stage, and some people would just prefer to be elsewhere. One could argue it's a troubling sign that Alderson had to deny the Mets' struggles to hire a GM are related to Cohen, given the perception that's growing around the team owner. Hiring Eppler may work out, but his arrival would likely leave some fans underwhelmed. Like I said, it's not one of these moves that's going to make people so excited, but it's an experience move, and it's kind of a low-risk move. Like, it's a guy who has experience, and, it's not one of these moves that, like I said, 5 years from now, right, the Mets stink, Eppler's fired, they're terrible, he does nothing. It's not one of these moves you can look back on and say, oh, should have never hired him. We don't really know a ton about him. He has experience, he's been in the big stage before, but it's not like he's had crazy success. So what are the expectations? That's kind of the question mark. Like, the expectations kind of got to be kind of set at a medium. You kind of got to find it in between. Because if it's Theo Epstein, expectations got to be up here. But it's Billy Eppler. Expectations maybe a little bit down here. So that's why it's like, this isn't a move that when you hear the news, you're like, oh yeah, we got him. I'm so excited. This is great. This is exactly what I wanted to get. But it also can't be, oh, I hate this, because we don't really know a ton about him. You got to kind of find the middle. Find the middle there. The 46-year-old helped the Angels land Shohei Ohtani, and he was in charge when LA got Mike Trout to pledge his future to the franchise with a record-setting 12-year, $426.5 million extension. Eppler also did his best to overhaul a minor league system that was routinely in the bottom half of the league. So he does spend money, Shohei Ohtani giving Trout the extension, but he also does do a lot with the young guys, minor leagues, developing, all that stuff. So he's kind of a little bit in the in-between there. Having said that, the Angels failed to post a winning record in any of his 5 years as GM. Beyond signing Ohtani, there isn't much Eppler can point to in terms of personnel masterstrokes either. If this is how the Mets' prolonged GM search end, then their new look front office will face skepticism right out of the game. So we'll see. We'll see how it all goes. It's not one of these, it's not one of these moves where you can say, oh, this guy's winning a World Series in year 5 or year 3. But it's also not one of these moves can you say, oh, this is going to stink. It's kind of in the question. It's kind of in the question mark, because yes, he's made some moves. Yes, he has some experience, but he's never really taken it. He's never taken a team to the playoffs. He's never really been that big name guy to really do, be that mastermind. So we'll see what he does. We'll see. I think what's going to really depend on if Mets fans like him or not early on is what he does with managers. And that tends to happen with GMs, because that's your first move. That's usually your first move with the organization is usually the manager. So that's kind of your first, your first move that Mets fans will get to see. So that's kind of your first move, and that's kind of your first impression type thing is what you do with manager. So if he hires a manager that a lot of Mets fans like, well, everyone will love him. If he hires a manager that Mets fans don't like, they'll hate him. So we'll see how everything goes. But it's definitely one of these moves where it leaves you with some question marks. But, you can't say that he hasn't had experience in the big market, and you can't say he doesn't have experience as a GM, because he does have both of those. So the Mets are hiring an experienced guy, but ultimately, what does he do with his roster, and can he truly lead a team to the playoffs and have true success? And we'll see. All right, so we'll get to the New York sports update here to finish it off. By the way, the rookies of the year yesterday were announced. So Jonathan India won Rookie of the Year for the NL, and the AL was Randy Arozarena. So they both won their respective Rookie of the Year for their both of the leagues. And yeah, obviously, India had a great year. Obviously, not one of those. Definitely not one of the players I don't think many of us saw winning it all, but he had a great season. Alrighty, as for the New York sports update and everything like that, alrighty, let's get this up here. Alright, so we'll start off with the NBA. As for today, we got the Jazz and the 76ers. I'll give Jazz the win. And Clippers, Spurs, I'll give Clippers the win. Nets also play today against the Warriors. Nets come into this game 10-4. Warriors come into this game 11-2. Nets are 3-point favorites. The over-under is 222. This game goes on tonight, 7:30 p.m. Eastern on TNT. So a nationally televised game, a big game early on. 53% of people think the Warriors will win. So it's close. It really is. Claxton, day-to-day. Millsap looks like he's going to be out. Joe Harris is out. So, both those guys, we'll see what the Nets do, whether they put in Bembry, Mills, Cam Thomas, whatever they do. We'll see what they do in terms of, filling in that hole for the roster. I'm going to give the Nets the win. I'm not overly confident. I'm kind of in the middle here because the Warriors are a good team. I don't think it's going to be I don't think the Nets are going to crush them by any means. I think it's going to be a close and good game. I guess lean a little bit towards the Nets, give them a win. Alrighty, as for the NHL, we got the Flames, Flyers. I'll give Flames the win. Panthers, Islanders, give Panthers the win. Maple Leafs, Predators, give Maple Leafs the win. Penguins, Sabres, give Penguins the win. Blues, Coyotes, give Blues the win. Jets, Oilers, give Oilers the win. Oilers the win. Wild, Sharks, give Wild the win. Stars, Red Wings, give Stars the win. Capitals, Ducks, give Capitals the win. And Hurricanes, Golden Knights, give Hurricanes the win. Rangers also play today. Rangers versus Canadians. Rangers come into this game 9-3-3 on the season. Canadians are 4-11-2 on the season. This game goes on today, 7 Eastern on ESPN+. You can also find it on MSG. The over-under is set at 5.5 for this game. Rangers coming off of a big win against the Devils in overtime shootout. 79% of people think the Rangers will win. Give me the Rangers. At home, having a good season so far. Give me the Rangers. Alrighty, as for college basketball today, for the top 25, we got USC. I'll give USC the win. Villanova, Duke, Purdue, Alabama, Memphis, Houston, North Carolina, Michigan, and Oregon. I'll give them all wins. And then we got Kentucky and Mount St. Mary's. Kentucky comes into this game 1-1. Mount St. Mary's comes into this game 1-2. Kentucky's 26.5-point favorites. The over-under is set at 135. This game goes on today, 7 p.m. Eastern on SEC Network. And, yeah, I'm going to give Kentucky the win. You got to feel good about a game like that. Alrighty, and then, alrighty, and as for fantasy football, I won in my non-PPR league 113-53. So I moved to 5-4-1 on the season. And, yeah, I got a pending move as well. So I'm adding Browns defense and going to drop Steelers D. So that's my pending move there. And then injury updates. It's so early on, but the injury updates are really, there is no updates on the injury other than Carson. Coach Pete Carroll said Monday that the Seahawks will be revisiting Carson's next status Wednesday. Greg Bell, the Tacoma News Tribune reports. And then as for DeAndre Hopkins, there's no new updates on him. So Chris Carson's the only one that we got updates on. We'll see how everything plays out with him. And as for my other league, my non-PPR league, I lost 105-73, so I moved to 5-5 on the season. And injury updates in my other league are no new updates other than Crowder. So there's no new updates on either. The only update is on Chris Carson, rather. So we'll see how everything plays out there. Alrighty, and as for fantasy basketball, I'm currently winning 362-297, so that's going really good. And today I've got Donovan Mitchell, Bojan Bogdanovic, and Tyrese Maxey. So those are the guys I got going today in fantasy basketball, looking for another win. So that should be good. Alrighty, that will do it for the podcast here today. A lot of great sports on tonight. Nets, Kentucky, Rangers, a lot of basketball, hockey. Should all be very good. All very good games, so enjoy it. Another good podcast in the books, as always. I will see you all back here tomorrow. Hope you enjoyed it, and thanks for watching.